Welcome to another episode of the Battlefields and Bourbon Podcast, a podcast where we sit and sip, talk all things Civil War history and bourbon whiskey. I'm Jack, joined as always by my co-host Elijah. We are coming to you from the historic Bell House in beautiful downtown Winchester, Virginia. The Bell House is preserved by our sponsor, the Shenandoah Valley Battlefields National Historic District. If you'd like to support the podcast, consider becoming a member of the Shenandoah Valley Battlefields National Historic District. Membership start as low as $35 and go up to infinity. So if you feel like supporting the podcast, consider becoming a member of the National Historic District. Your support through them supports us. All right, we've got an exciting episode today. We're joined by reoccurring guest / guest co-host / special guest, Aaron Seaver.
I swear he lives here.
Yeah, Aaron's Civil War travels. We've had to lock him out of the house a couple times when we've recorded, but we've let him back in.
Locked him out of the whiskey cabinet.
Yeah.
I'm just here for the bourbon.
Yeah, so Aaron of Aaron Civil War Travels is back. We're glad to have him. Excited about the topic we are talking about this evening. But before we get started, our glasses are empty. Let's fill them up. Elijah, what are we sipping on tonight?
So tonight's whiskey will go right hand in hand with our battle topic. We've got West Bottoms Whiskey Company's Kansas City whiskey. This is coming from the historic West Bottoms District in Kansas City, Missouri. And our battle topic for the evening is going to be the Battle of Westport, Missouri, which is just south of Kansas City, which would fall in, I guess, modern day Kansas City at this point. But yeah, this whiskey is their flagship pre-Prohibition style whiskey. And this is a blend of high rye bourbon, rye whiskey, and Oloroso sherry, which is from Spain. This comes in at 94 proof, and each whiskey in the blend is at least 2 years old. So you're looking at a minimum 2 years for each whiskey that's in this thing. And as far as the mash bill goes, there's a 36% rye content in the mash bill of the high rye bourbon, 95.5 rye whiskey, so 95% rye, 5% malt. And then up to 2.5% sherry added to the blend. And then it's split 50-50, I believe, between those, is the way that I was described this by Alex, who is the master distiller and I believe owner of West Bottoms Whiskey Company. So he gave me kind of a little crash course on this thing, because it is an interesting blend and not one that you, I guess, would see very often. But we'll give it a pop, see what we think.
Wow.
That was a good one. That's probably one of the best ones we've ever had, actually. Smells good.
Took some muscle from you to pull that cork out.
Pass the bottle around here. A couple things to note about this whiskey, too. It was ranked, it was one of the top ranked American blended whiskeys per Forbes.com, 99-point platinum rating at the Las Vegas Global Spirits Awards, and a double gold Denver International Spirits Competition winner. So it's got some pretty good accolades behind it. The card that they sent with it says that the tasting notes are going to be upfront spice, honey, and leather on the palate with a stone fruit finish. So we will see what we think of that. It's definitely got a fruity, almost like a wine kind of nose to it, but like a candy, like a very sweet candy nose on it. But I like that. That's interesting. I've never smelled anything like that one before.
Great flavor.
I like it.
It's very it's not simple. It's very complex.
Easy.
Goes down.
Easy sipping, yeah. Yeah, for the proof, I mean, that's a very easy sipper at 94 proof. But yeah, that blend there, it's just got an interesting, it's hard to describe almost. I mean, obviously their tasting notes are going to be pretty on the money as far as that goes, but to come up with your own interpretation of that, it's like, don't really know, but I like it. You know what I mean? Like it's
yeah, I get the fruity wine type of,
and I would guess that's coming from the sherry in it as well.
Yeah.
I mean, that's going to give you that. It'll also give you a dry quality to it too on the mouthfeel.
So that's taste instead of what I normally do.
yeah, just
I did what I
for
normally
our new listeners, whenever Aaron's on, he takes a massive shot out of the Glencairn glass, gives his thoughts then. So if you're one of those people, Aaron's the perfect host for you on these episodes.
A quick way to acclimate your palate with the whiskey you're about to enjoy, I guess.
Yeah.
We'll
so
go with that.
Aaron's more of a sit and chug, not a sit and sip kind of guy.
I just sipped one.
You did. Thoughts there?
It's same.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I definitely tasted the honey on the second.
Yeah, that's the thing
Yeah,
too. It's
yeah.
like you getting your tongue coated with like a honey, but then there's the fruitiness of the wine. So
I do like the heavy fruit notes in that one because usually they're very subtle or muted in other whiskeys. We may have had a couple other ones that have had that pronounced of a fruity note, but this is even more so. But yeah, I really enjoy that. That's a
good oak too. I mean, you can get the
Yeah.
you can get the barrel coming through for sure, which is a pleasant taste. It's not.
It's like
Yeah.
leaves like a tingle in your mouth.
Well, that's
Yeah.
called alcohol. Aaron.
there is some alcohol in this, believe it or not. It does taste good, but there is
I
alcohol.
guess it's the I don't know. It's like a fruity tingle. So
Mm-hmm.
it's not
But yeah.
bad.
Yeah, the after feel, like the aftertaste, is very pleasant. Like what lingers around is still those fruity notes,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not like that's a good aftertaste for sure.
Yeah. And one thing that I think is impressive with this one is sometimes with sherry finished whiskeys, sometimes it can get a little overdone and it'll really dry your mouth out and kind of like almost give you that kind of inside out feeling just from the dryness of it. But this one was done so well that it's like just the perfect balance. It doesn't come across as too dry, but it's also very noticeable as far as the sherry is concerned. Like you can tell that it's part of the blend. So, I mean, well done from them. And big shout out to Alex and team at West Bottoms Whiskey Company for hooking us up with this tasty bottle. I'm sure it won't last long.
Yeah,
But,
I was a little worried, to be honest with you, when I smelled it, because it smelled like fruitcake, and I can't stand fruitcake. But
See, I
it
like
doesn't
that.
taste like fruitcake.
But is
good.
fruitcake a good smell? I don't think I've ever had
It
fruitcake.
doesn't smell bad.
So, fruitcake is a good thing to describe then. But you were nervous that it was going to taste
Like fruitcake.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just not. I can't go there.
But now that you mention that,
Bad trauma memories.
now that you mention that, there is a bit of a pastry note in that as well.
Yeah.
And I that's like a toaster strudel to
Yeah.
an extent. You
Yeah,
know what I mean?
that
Like
would
with the
be-
fruit and the baked goods. So
Baked good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not the cake part, but like the
yeah, no, but I mean, this is a
yeah.
really solid all around whiskey. And we will put a link to their website in the episode description as well. So if you guys are interested in what they do, or if you live in a state where you can order this stuff to your door, definitely check them out, see what they can do for you, and try some of their expressions. I know they're having a new release just came out, and it's I don't want to mispronounce the name, but I know I'm going to. It's either Tanat, some sort of, I believe it's a Japanese wine, but it's used for finishing. But really, really pretty color on that whiskey. It was like a nice deep red color. So good finishing there. And I know they just released that, and I'm sure it won't last long. So if you're listening to this, I can't guarantee that it's still available there. But if anything, check them out and see what they have that might interest you. But yeah, like I said, shout out to Alex and the team over at West Bottoms.
Yeah, another great whiskey. Yeah,
Yeah.
this is. I'm impressed.
Yeah.
Very, very good.
We were talking before we hit record, and I think we were all like, we haven't had a bad whiskey or bourbon yet. Nothing that's like been terrible.
That stood out, yeah. No, but this one definitely stands out for all the right reasons, I think.
100%.
I'm a big fan of that one.
Great bottle too. Good label on it, and I love the cork seal with the the signature of the distiller on it and the front logo. So it's
Yeah, you get the guy with the monocle.
it's a cool little bottle. You'll see it in the pour profile. So definitely a nice one that once it's done, it'll be cool to add to the bottle collection of
The bottle
of
collection,
somebody.
the bottle graveyard.
The bottle graveyard, as they call it. Yeah.
But yeah, without further ado, West Bottoms, Kansas City, Westport. Like I said, that's going to be our battle topic for the evening. And Aaron is here also to kind of guide us along with that. The Battle of Westport, obviously that was fought October 23rd of 1864, but there's a lot of things that we need to get into before you get to that battle. And this is going to be Sterling Price's raid into Missouri. So Aaron, what do you think of that?
So really, it depends on who you talk to, but a lot of historians will actually go back that the Battle of Westport is 3 days, much like another battle here in the East that happened the year before, Gettysburg.
Which this one is considered the Gettysburg of the West.
They're the Gettysburg of the West. Now, you also have
Glorietta Pass.
Glorietta Pass. However, I'm just going to put this out there. Glorieta Pass happens before Gettysburg, so how can it be the Gettysburg?
Exactly.
Anyway.
We've
Yeah.
talked about this. No.
why.
For our listeners, we're going into it.
Yep. Let's go.
So I get that, but I don't think it's. I think it's unfair to just knock it out and say you can't call it something.
No.
But to the idea that if something took place before, I mean, I see what you're saying. As historians, we normally don't relate something in the past to a future event.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
But however, the outcome of Glorieta Pass is very similar to Gettysburg. So
Yeah. I don't know. Listeners, put it in the comments. Maybe we make it the Q&A part.
Which one really is the Gettysburg?
Gettysburg.
Yeah.
Which is the Gettysburg of the
Both be it.
and
Because
why?
Westport is technically it's the largest battle west of the Mississippi, whereas Gettysburg, largest battle
East of the Mississippi.
So
Three-day
you've got-
battle.
Mhm.
3-day battle. And really, like I said, you can put this as a 3-day battle, October 21st through the 23rd, easily, because they're fighting at Westport this whole time. So, yeah, basically, you have Sterling Price, former governor of Missouri. He's fought in a lot of battles out in that area. You know, Battle of Wilson's Creek back in 61. He fought at Pea Ridge in 62. As a matter of fact, he's going to face his counterpart, Samuel Curtis, who is in charge of the Union forces here.
We mentioned him in the Battle of Pea Ridge.
Pea Ridge. So
just a
those
couple
guys,
episodes ago.
those guys will meet in 1862. So they're going to meet again in 1864. But it's really, you have to look at it and go, why are we talking about a Battle of Westport in 1864 in Missouri? What is that, like, what's going on there?
How do we get here?
So let's look at the overall picture. At this point in time, we're not, August, September, October, the Shenandoah Valley, there's a lot of fighting here in the valley going on. By October, the valley's going to be burned. You're going to have Grant has pushed Lee all the way to Richmond by this time. So now that army is set. Now you've got, what are the Confederates doing? They're in a defensive mode, really. Except for Sterling Price, who's going to decide to go on a raid with the intent of taking St. Louis, reestablishing the Confederate governor there, and bringing Missouri into the Confederacy fully. Once the Confederate government is established there, they can pull Missouri in. And the thought is, if we can do that, that's going to offset what's happening in Virginia and all that, because now the West is now under, this is a border state. This is a state, we go back 1854. This is a state that's been on fire for a long time. Sorry, my southern accent came out there on fire. But anyway, this state, Kansas, Missouri, bleeding Kansas, we have all that going on before the official Civil War. So this place has already seen a ton of action. So, yeah, if you can get Missouri in, could this hurt Lincoln's reelection? You thought the West was secure. Maybe it's not. So big gamble there. Price, he's definitely taking a risk. When he starts this invasion, he's got 12,000 cavalry, and it's a cavalry raid, but he's got 12,000. Should note that 4,000 of those men are unarmed. So he's looking for supplies. He's looking for arms and things like that. He's also looking for recruits. Yeah. He's looking. So we're going north to get supplies. That happened in the East a year before. Anyway.
And what's interesting too is he's starting out with those 12,000. By the time the Battle of Westport actually happens, he's only down to 8,500.
8,500.
Thereabouts, just because he had kind of, wasted time, wasted lives in these smaller engagements leading up to that, just trying to get from St. Louis, which we'll mention, to the other side of the state.
And I'm sure we'll mention it again, but by the end of this campaign, I think he's got 3,000 guys, 3 or 4,000. That's it. And I that may have been the unarmed people. But yeah, he's gonna roll through, and he's gonna start in August to try to take the war into Missouri. He's in Arkansas at that point. He's going to start out from Camden on August 28th, Camden, Arkansas. And he's going to move up all the way into, he'll stop at Pocahontas, Arkansas before entering Missouri. I think the first real town he comes to is Fredericktown. But there's going to be a battle September 26th. And that is going to be at Fort Davidson, which is near Pilot Knob, Missouri. And again, you talked about the small battles he's going to have. So that's a Confederate victory. Mm-hmm. He's starting off a campaign with a bang. That's a Confederate victory. However, it's costly. Again, he's got 12,000 guys. There's some places that put him up to maybe even 15,000, but that just makes it sound even worse when you get down to the end. Right. Everybody kind of goes, he's got like 3,000 guys left.
And that's one thing to mention too, is up till the Battle of Westport, and even for the beginning of the Battle of Westport, is Sterling Price is really winning these battles. He's kind of got them on their heels as far as that goes, and we'll get into it. Obviously, that it'll shift, but all across Missouri, he's kind of got Union commanders raising their eyebrows a little bit, like what's going on here?
Yeah.
With obviously the fighting force that he has, but he obviously. The initial goal here was St. Louis, because you want to get there, you want to install your pro-Southern governor, and as he's getting there, finds out this is way too fortified for my force to attack.
By the 26th, 27th, he's fought this battle at Pilot Knob. Mm-hmm. That's going to slow him down, and that gives Major General William S. Rosecrans. Or Rosecrans, depends on how you say Rosecrans. Okay. Anyway, he's able to fortify St. Louis with reinforcements, and because of that, Price is now going to go, I think I should attack that. And he's right. I mean, he probably would have been decimated had he done that. So he's gonna turn left basically and go west
towards Jefferson City
through Missouri. And as he does so, he's going to fight a couple more little battles. Rosecrans has ordered reinforcements to Jefferson City. After some skirmishing there, Price is going to decide against a full-out assault and head to Boonville. So he's just kind of moving around. He's like, I don't want to do this. And when we look here from. He started in August. We're already in October by this time. Like he's moving not super, super quick, but it's, with the cavalry force, the whole time
he's taking his time.
Yeah. He's trying to get supplies. He's trying to get men. This has been done before where they've went into Missouri and tried to recruit.
And they do get some, do they not? But it's not anything to make, much of a difference at all. Maybe a regiment if you're lucky.
Yeah. When he decides he's not going to attack Jefferson City, he moves down to Boonville, and this is where you see the difference in the citizens, because this is it's not necessarily just a pro-Southern state, it's not just a pro-Union state, but certain towns have certain affiliations. So when he gets to Boonville, he's going to remain there several days because he's given a hero's welcome. He's liberating Missouri. So everybody's they're falling over him. Yeah, I'm going to stay here a couple of days.
Right.
Where,
morale.
These other places are occupied by the Union. So yeah, that's definitely a morale boost, like you said. And while he's there, he's going to arrive there on the 10th. On the 15th, while he's in that area, he's going to start gathering more supplies. And this is kind of a critical point because he is sending Brigadier General John B. Clark Jr. up to Glasgow, which is north of Boonville. And the idea is to bring back weapons, supplies, and get all that there. There's a federal storehouse there. So raid that, take your weapons, take all that, bring it back to the Army. He's also going to detach a force under Brigadier General M. Jeff Thompson to attack Sedalia, and again, bring back weapons, horses, and supplies. Now, of note, before we get too far, Jeff Thompson, Brigadier General, is in command of the Confederate Iron Brigade. So we know it's not as famous as the Iron Brigade here in the East from the Western, from the West, but still it's known as the Confederate Iron Brigade. Very good units, hard fighting. And Thompson is known as the Swamp Fox of the Confederacy. And the reason that is because some of his first commands, he's not a Confederate general, so to speak. He is a Missouri State Guard general. He never gets a commission as a Confederate officer, so to speak.
So he's always like state militia more.
Yeah, state militia, but he's regarded as a general. And he's called the Swamp Fox because his first duty is actually in a swampy area of Missouri. And so he's, I didn't even know Missouri had swampy areas, but apparently it does. But that's where he's at, and he's attacking the Federals and things like that. He ends up using gunboats there. He does a lot of neat things there with the little force that he has. And he becomes the Swamp Fox of the Confederacy. Of course, Swamp Fox is more, not Civil War, more back in the day Rev War stuff. Mm-hmm. But obviously we've seen where they've reused names. We got young Napoleon from McClellan and all that. But he's an interesting guy. He has not been in command of the Iron Brigade of the Confederacy very long. This is actually the first battle, I believe, that he actually commands them in. He does fight. I think he does fight at Wilson's Creek. I think so. Anyway, but he's going to be under Joe Shelby, who is one of the divisions under Price's command. So these guys are going out there gathering supplies, bringing it to the Army. It's a great thing for Price. And, by the 19th, Price is going to start moving to Lexington. Now, the entire time, the Federal Army is scrambling to try and get there and stop this advance of the Confederates. Even though they stopped them at St. Louis, they're now driving across the state of Missouri. Mm-hmm. That's a bad look. That's bad. We can't have that. So when Price gets to Lexington, he's going to encounter Federal cavalry from the Army of the Border, who is commanded by Samuel Curtis. Shout out to P. Ridge.
And the folks that they're battling with here in Lexington are 1st Division under General Blunt. Yeah,
General Blunt, James Blunt, who's outnumbered and withdraws from Lexington. He's going to lose that battle. However, so you could say in a way he failed to blunt Price's advance, but he did.
That's terrible, Aaron.
It is terrible. That's a dad joke. Sorry. But he does. He slows down Price just enough for a guy that we've heard of, Alfred Pleasanton, to start coming into play, start kind of trying to catch up to these Confederates.
Which is interesting that he's way out west.
Yeah, he's been shipped out west.
Well, just a year prior, he was in the East.
Yeah, he's been in the East the whole war until now.
Mm-hmm. And obviously delaying them at Lexington, and then just a couple days later, you're at Little Blue River on the 21st there, and that is it gives Pleasanton's cavalry just enough time for them to kind of close that gap,
starting to close the gap.
So that way, it's kind of setting up that chessboard for Westport when that time comes.
And this is, and really, I mean, on the 21st, that's why. Especially some of the historians that Westport is their thing in Kansas City there, they talk about the 21st because the 21st is really the start of the Battle of Westport. Mm-hmm. The Little Blue River is right there, and it's a formidable position. It's a good position, but the Federals, that on the 21st, Price will attack them. They're under the command of Colonel Thomas Moonlight. That's a cool name, man.
Yeah,
I was like, I haven't looked much up about him, but I just, is he Native American? Because I like the Moonlight thing. Like, is that a thing?
I'll have to look at it.
Yes, cool. I mean, that would just be another cool aspect if he is. If he's not, it's still a cool name.
Hold it against him,
but we won't hold it against him. But anyway, so Moonlight he's going to be there to Little Blue River, near Independence.
And there's an engagement there the following day.
Yeah, there's actually a couple of engagements that happen around that area. But yeah, at Independence, again, this is technically a Confederate victory on the first day. What other 3-day battle was that? Oh, yeah, Gettysburg. So you can start to see some of the similarities between Gettysburg and Westport, Missouri. So the Federals will withdraw at the end of the day, and they'll withdraw to, now we had the Little Blue River. You'll never guess what the next river is called. The Big Blue River. So that's where they're going to go. They have a better defensive posture there. And so on the October 22nd to the 23rd, you're going to have the Battle of Big Blue, which is that's a cool name. The Battle of Big Blue. But you also, on the 23rd, will have the Battle of Brush Creek, and the Battle of the Big Blue again. So it starts on the 22nd, continues through the 23rd at Big Blue. You also have Brush Creek. Now at this point, the Confederates they're kind of split. You've got Joe Shelby, you've got Marmaduke, and Sterling Price is split. Then Marmaduke is going to end up facing Alfred Pleasanton, and the goal is to hold Pleasanton off until Shelby and
that's more so the rear. They're protecting the rear.
Yeah, they're protecting the rear because Pleasanton's coming in on the rear. But you've got General Fagan as well. Marmaduke and Fagan. Shelby and Fagan are trying to blunt a force here and then be able to turn on Pleasanton. Price's idea is, I'm going to hit these three elements of the Federal Army. I'll hit Westport. I'll hit, Byram's Run, I believe, and then Brush Creek. I'll hit these places and be able to turn on each one. It doesn't work out that way.
Yeah, I think that's his fault there, and that is trying to address multiple threats individually with such a small force. Knowing you're outnumbered, there's no way that you can possibly give enough attention to each threat to where you can adequately, gain victory over one or the other, to where, I can reinforce this front next. You know what I mean? Like he's just prolonging the inevitable at that point.
Well,
if you're going to do something,
like his numbers are...
Yeah, with the numbers that he's got, he may as well at that point just throw a larger number at one threat at a time, rather than trying to spread everybody out, take everybody. You know what I mean? Like it just doesn't make sense for what you've got.
Look at Pleasanton. Pleasanton's Provisional Cavalry Division by itself is 5,500 men.
You can't do anything with that.
You only got like 3,000 more really when you get down to it. You got 4,000 unarmed guys hanging around doing whatever.
Marmaduke's
put them in the skirmishers.
Just waving their hands.
Wave the hands around. Here they come. But
Marmaduke's men really, for the most part, held it down against Pleasanton's cavalry for what they were given.
Yeah. Marmaduke. He's a very, we don't hear a lot about him because unfortunately he's in the Western Theater. The Eastern Theater gets a lot of looks because that's where all the newspapers are. That's where the capitals are. That's where the presidents are. Everything's there. Everybody's focused there. But you've got some really good Union and Confederate generals out in the West. Marmaduke would be one of them.
What a beast of a name, too.
No, it's a great name. Yeah. I would almost say that, you got Moonlight, too. Colonel Moonlight. It's close to the best name in the Civil War. It's getting there.
One thing I forgot to mention before I go ahead and cut you off. One thing I forgot to mention, through all of this, as Sterling Price's army is moving across Missouri, one of the folks that's keeping Curtis updated on the movements is a name that might ring a bell, Wild Bill Hickok.
Yeah.
He is a spy for the Union Army, and he's updating them on their movements as they're coming across the state. And it's just interesting to see that someone who later becomes, such an outlaw, ends up, helping the federal government or the federal army in such a capacity early on, but then ends up being, someone later on in history that
pops up, has his own path. One other thing too that should really be pointed out. We talked about supplies. Well, by this time, we get to the Battle of Westport. Price has got a lot of supplies. He's got a lot of wagons, a lot of cattle. He's trying to move those. So he not only is trying to stop the Union Army here, he's trying to stop them from capturing his wagon train. He wants to get that back down to Arkansas if he can. So, that should be noted that that's another reason we have this big battle at Westport, is because if he doesn't attack there, if he doesn't fight there, they're just going to overrun him and take his wagon train. So that's one of the big things, is to get that wagon train out of there.
Right. I think I misspoke. Hickok wouldn't necessarily be an outlaw. My bad.
Oh,
More or less,
entertainer.
Yeah.
And I read something where, as far as our Union commander, Samuel Curtis, he's an older guy at this point. I mean, actually, Sterling Price is pretty close to the same age.
Both a little timid in their age.
They're a little timid, and kudos to Curtis for putting Blunt in command, basically, and saying, go do your thing, because Blunt is the reason the Union Army will win this. He's going to be the one setting up the defensive lines. He's going to be the one giving orders and things like that.
Good practice.
So, yeah, I mean, hey, it's great. October 21st, we have that first initial Little Blue River engagement, pushes the Federals back. The next day, October 22nd, you're going to have fighting at the Big Blue again, but you also have fighting at Byram's Ford. And this is what sets the stage for the main fighting at Westport, because the Union forces are frantically reorienting themselves to Price, who has now crossed the Big Blue River. So once the battle has progressed, Price is able to push past the Big Blue, and now he's at Westport. Again, he's still trying to get his trains out of there, but he's able to be there.
Well, and through all of this, his goal isn't necessarily Westport. It's Fort Leavenworth, Kansas.
Yep. Fort Leavenworth.
So he's trying to head way out west and ends up, inadvertently making battle here at Westport, which, I mean, you could maybe tie that into Gettysburg as an inadvertent place of battle.
Look at the Confederates, and I'm a firm, we call it the Gettysburg campaign. Firm believer it was the Harrisburg campaign. Just based on what you read, shout out to Charlie Knight with a great book, From Arlington to Appomattox.
Yeah.
Robert E. Lee, Day by Day. You start reading in there, Lee says he calls it the Harrisburg campaign for a long time, until after the Battle of Gettysburg. Then it becomes the Gettysburg campaign. But that's neither here nor there. But very similar. He's trying to get out, west. He's trying to do something else, not fight this battle at Westport.
Right.
So again, we talked about Curtis placing Major General James Blunt in charge of this. He is in charge of the new east-west line south of Westport, and he's going to be constructing earthworks there. So he's making this a formidable defensive position. While he's doing that, go ahead.
And he's building earthworks, like you said, in a formidable position along Brush Creek. And it's my understanding this is quite a high ground above that creek. So you're digging in a trench line on a bluff overlooking a creek. I mean, you would think that this is, easy win all day long.
Oh yeah,
but that ends up not being the case.
They're ready for an attack from the south, easy. But yeah, early on the 23rd, the Federals there at Brush Creek are attacked by the bulk of the Army of Missouri under Joe Shelby and James Fagan. That action is going to seesaw back and forth, and the Confederates are going to gain an early advantage. They're going to start pushing the Union Army. Again, here we go with some similarities. On July 2nd, 1863, Confederates are pushing the Union. They're not able to take the heights. We get to Pickett, Pettigrew, Trimble charge, on July 3rd. Not going to have quite that, but there are a lot of similarities between these two battles. But with this action seesawing back and forth and them getting the early advantage, everything's looking good except one little thing. They gathered all these supplies and they have to pause and replenish their ammunition now. So that causes a stop. We see it in several battles, especially for the Confederacy. Several battles that they're at. Cedar Creek here in the valley, they stop because they have to replenish something, or they have to get food, or they have to reorganize. Well, if you're doing that in front of a vastly superior army, your chances of winning go down drastically.
And that was what was interesting too, is that Blunt, although he established the earthworks, established that defensive position, like, okay, come attack me, he sends skirmishers across Brush Creek to kind of kick off the battle. And once they get driven back up into their earthworks and everything, fighting starts to, kind of really heat up. The Confederates have this momentum to, really drive them out of town, but then they run out of ammo. So then at that point, they have to kind of go on the defensive until they can get resupplied. So they're sitting there, most of them, without anything.
And that whole time, the Kansas militia is pouring into the Union ranks. So there's a lot of militia simply fighting in this battle, which is something we don't see in a lot of battles. We see, we have our citizen soldiers and things like that, but there's Kansas militia, Missouri State Guard militia. There's a lot of militia units in this.
Not to go on a tangent, but I have to, is why that Kansas militia is there is because they were trying to convince, the state of Kansas to bring or contribute men to the cause, because obviously at that point in the war, they're looking for men. And the governor of Kansas at that time was saying, no, we're fine where we're at. Until obviously Price's men get a little close to the border, and they're like, well, I don't know, maybe we should protect our border here, is more or less the point of that. But yeah, at the initially they weren't budging.
No, they were not budging. And after these reinforcements arrive, the Confederates are going to get some ammunition back. Again, the fighting is going to go back and forth. It's basically a big stalemate at this point. And General Curtis is going to look for a way to get around the Confederate flank. He's got to break this deadlock. And to do so, he's going to run into a guy named George Toman. George Toman is a local farmer. He is angry. He's an angry man right now because the Confederates were at his farm and they stole everything. So Confederate thievery. And so now he's going to go show General Curtis of the Union Army a creek bed at Swan Creek. And this is going to allow the Federals to get behind the Confederates at about 11 a.m. in the morning on October 23rd.
And he personally leads them. He's like, I'll show them.
Yep, he's mad. He's like, I'm going, just follow me.
This ends up being quite the position for the Federal artillery. I mean, this is, and Curtis, what's interesting is, Curtis is taking a back seat in this battle. However, he's personally leading this artillery through this ravine.
Yeah, you've got the 9th Wisconsin Battery using this defile to outflank the rebels. He's leading, and Curtis is personally leading. His dander's starting to get up a little bit. Even though he's an older guy and he's a little more laid back now, his dander's starting to get up.
It seems like a little fun. I might jump in.
Yeah, and I'm going to go off this topic a little bit. Samuel Curtis is the savior of Missouri for the Union Army. Pea Ridge, Westport. He's commanded the army there.
Well, prior to Price's raid, I mean, they had solid control of Missouri since Pea Ridge.
Yep.
So I mean, he had been holding it down for 2 years until this ever happened. So I mean, he was. I guess you could say he got a little comfortable.
Yeah, maybe. The 9th Wisconsin Battery. I was going to say I can't spit Wisconsin out, apparently. Love your cheese. Anyway, the barrage from the southwest of the Confederate position, combined with a frontal assault by Blunt, is going to steadily force Joe Shelby's men south. And they're going to take a position near the Warnell House, which will serve as a field hospital later, and it still stands today. It's part of the tour of Westport, which I'm very impressed with the Battle Associate. They have a very nice tour there, and a lot of little things to be able to see for a battlefield that's
largely developed.
They kudos to them for doing that, but we'll get into that in a little bit. But the Confederates are fighting desperately to defeat these Federals around Brush Creek. But Price's worst nightmare is going to come true. And that's not going to happen at Brush Creek. It's not going to happen at the Blue. It's happening at Byram's Ford. Alfred Pleasanton has finally arrived on the field from the east, and the Confederates are now surrounded from the west, north, and east. Now, Marmaduke's going to give him some hell. Mm-hmm. He's going to fight him. But Pleasanton's Provisional Cavalry Division is going to hold the day. Marmaduke's pickets at Byram's Ford around 8 a.m.
They lasted a while.
Yeah.
3 hours.
Yeah, because this is the other action's at 11. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, Marmaduke holds his own. But by, this starts at 8 a.m. for them the same day. And they're going to vigorously pursue to the main Confederate position. They're going to pursue these skirmishers, which is at atop a hill beyond the ford. So there's going to be a lot of Federal attacks. All these attacks are going to be repulsed. The Confederates are in a good position, but around 11 a.m., when this is heating up here, at 11 a.m., at 11 a.m., around the same time that Toman is showing Curtis the way around the Confederate left and rear, the Federals are going to force Marmaduke's men off of the crest. And, had the two Federal forces combined, there was a good chance the Army of Missouri would have been completely crushed, and that's the end of the battle. That doesn't happen. They don't combine. However, the Army of the Missouri is still in a very desperate position. Price he's got to be freaking out at this point. Joe Shelby had demonstrated why he was considered one of the top generals for either side in the Trans-Mississippi. He's been fighting up here with Blunt and holding his own. And you've got Marmaduke fighting with Pleasant. These guys they're not pushovers, but they don't have the resources. They don't have the men to really combat what they're facing now. And as more Federal forces arrive, it's just downhill for them.
And one thing to note, too, is that while we said that Pleasanton really made that push at 11 in the morning, it could have happened even earlier for the Federals. But Pleasanton had given orders to Brigadier General Egbert Brown for making an attack across the ford there, and he disobeyed those orders. So he ended up getting placed under arrest by Pleasanton for that. However, had he carried out the orders as intended, there's a chance that they would have made it across, at least the Federal cavalry would have made it across from the east and pushed the Confederates, kind of corralled them in a sense to where they could have captured the Army of Missouri all together.
In this vice. Yeah.
And when we post the battle map, you'll kind of understand the way that the battle lines kind of shape, how that'll pan out. But if Brown were to have followed orders as intended, I think the battle may have taken a different turn.
Yeah, absolutely. And now we're not having a Confederate offensive here now. It's definitely a Confederate retreat.
They're fighting for their lives.
Now it's a big rear guard action, and Joe Shelby's going to be the man that's in there doing that, and he's going to do well. He's going to delay both Curtis and Pleasanton with his last line of defense around the Warnall House. And this will allow the other Confederate forces to pull out of that Federal vice. They're starting to come in, but Shelby's skillful delaying action, while it couldn't lead to a victory, it allows the bulk of the Army of Missouri to get back across the Big Blue River and go toward Little Santa Fe, where it will reunite with that large wagon train we talked about that Price was trying to get out of there.
And that was one thing to mention, too, is that Price kind of, guessed that this was not going in their favor. So he sends the wagons ahead of everything else. He's like, you guys go ahead and get just in case this goes.
Well, and you think about it, it's a fruitless raid at that point. If those get captured, I mean, he's done.
You need that, otherwise.
You need that. You need that those provisions and weapons and things. But because of that, other than Shelby being able to hold off Curtis and Pleasanton for enough, that basically is going to end the Battle of Westport on the 23rd, because there's nothing more for Price to do. He's outnumbered, overwhelmed. So it's a decisive defeat for the Army of Missouri. And any chance of Price claiming a success had vanished very quickly once Pleasanton makes that crossing, and Curtis gets down in that defile and is able to get around. So George Toman, probably the hero of the battle, leading Curtis to the rear of the Confederate Army. So maybe you shouldn't steal people's things. That could be a thing there.
That'll upset some folks for sure.
That upsets people. Now the Confederates after this, what happens after the battle is they're going to be vigorously pursued by the Federals, and there's going to be a bunch of running battles. So it doesn't just end and Curtis sits back and goes, okay. No, they're pursuing. Pleasanton's going to pursue them. And these running battles, the most notable of that's going to be the Battle of Mine Creek in Kansas, which is 2 days later. And Price will lose over 600 men and 2 generals. He's going to lose.
Yeah, the route they take to get out of there is kind of odd. They hop over into Kansas and then kind of dip back into, I think
they go into
Indian territory and then Oklahoma or something.
And then down to Texas before they come back into Arkansas.
They take the long way home.
This says with 6,000 men, which is half his original force. A lot of what I've seen, he's probably down lower than that.
Yeah.
But the generals that are taken, I believe it's Marmaduke and Fagan that are captured. I think Shelby is still with Price at that point. But the battle, we talked about the Battle of Westport, largest battle of the Civil War west of the Mississippi River, and one of the most significant. Although casualties on both sides they're only about 1,500. We've got about 30,000 engaged. We only got about 1,500 casualties, killed, wounded, and missing.
Which is crazy that's the largest west of the Mississippi. Those numbers compared to Gettysburg, where it was like
or anything east of Mississippi.
Yeah.
But you look at it, what does this do? It's a Confederate. This is the last Confederate invasion. This one,
at that point, you don't have the resources to do.
You don't have the resources, and it's been thwarted. So it ends that last gasp chance. Really, you could even say, no, it's not like the Battle of Gettysburg. This is the beginning of the end. This is it. Because, after Gettysburg, there's still a lot going on. After this battle, Missouri's secure. Abraham Lincoln's not losing the election because Missouri went to the Confederacy. That's not happening. So,
is there anything that you can speak on, Aaron? Like, what were the effects politically and maybe in the Eastern Theater of the results of this battle? What was the larger impact on the greater war effort?
Basically, like we had talked, you've got the Valley going on, you've got Grant down, you've got Sherman pushing toward, all that stuff's happening. But if you have this other force out west and something you thought was secure, and now we have another state, we're 3 years into the war. We've got another state, a border state that's now going to come completely into the Confederacy. That looks really, really bad. I honestly think that, I don't know that it would have tipped the scale completely, but it have made things pretty difficult for Lincoln.
I feel like this often gets overlooked.
Oh, big time.
Now that I've, understand the battle a little bit and its effects, people should also mention, the Valley, the eastern part of Virginia, Atlanta, and the march to the sea, and then out west. This is what would happen. It's the great what ifs. Those questions I hate.
When you think about
it, makes you think a little bit here, especially.
Yeah, and you think about too the overshadowing of how Gettysburg overshadows Vicksburg. What else is happening at this time? October 1864 in the east, Cedar Creek, and the like there. September of 64, Third Winchester. All these larger battles that are having, I don't want to say more of an impact because it all means something at some point.
Seem to be having more of an impact.
Right.
Because they're in the east.
Right. And that's where everyone, I guess, cares more. But, I mean, yeah.
This is, and I'm reading off of the Civil War in the West here, on the western border. I love what they've said here. It says, sorry, I lost it there for a second. It says Westport, has been called the Gettysburg of the West, based on its timing and what it happens. But they say, Westport's actually a little more decisive than Gettysburg. That's a big statement. At Gettysburg, Lee's Army of Northern Virginia suffered a sharp defeat, but it retreated in good order and escaped into Virginia as an intact army that continued to fight for
This is true.
2 more years.
Yeah.
By contrast, Price's army of Missouri virtually disintegrated after Westport. Furthermore, most of the large guerrilla bands in Missouri followed Price into Arkansas, so those guys are coming out. And so Price's raid actually ended the bushwhacking and Confederate military activity that's happening in the state of Missouri. In the 1864 elections, Price's defeat at Westport is another thing that's going to help empower the radical Republicans to electoral victories in both Missouri and Kansas.
And
That's huge.
And think about it too. Lee's army was able to continue to carry out so many other major battles after Gettysburg, whereas Price's army, I mean, really, what were they able to do after Westport that was notable? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, there's not much that they were able to do after that
I
point.
mean, Lee didn't run, 5 states down or whatever.
Right? Yeah.
Shelby,
Yeah.
Price ends up in Texas at one point. he's like, I'm out. But it's a major thing, and I find it interesting that we're talking about this battle. We're talking about it being a decisive battle, a decisive point in the Civil War, and it's on Missouri. It's the Missouri-Kansas border, where there's a lot of fighting before the Civil War. It just, I don't know. There's just, it doesn't get as much attention. Bleeding Kansas.
Everything that leads up.
Oh my gosh. This has been a war. These people have seen war
Yeah.
a lot longer than the rest of the country.
Yeah.
They have been in it, So definitely a very important battle, gets much overlooked. And again, we have a local person, a citizen, that's changing the course of a battle. Mm-hmm. Seems to happen a lot.
It's one of those unique aspects of history.
Yeah.
It just kind of all comes full circle.
Now, I would, if you guys are okay with it, I would like to give a shout out on a book.
I'll allow it.
Mark,
Second.
I think it's Laus. I'm not sure if I'm saying his name right, but The Collapse of Price's Raid and the Beginning of the End in Civil War, Missouri. Really good book by published by Columbia, the University of Missouri Press, 2016. Very good book. A lot of detail, a lot of information in there about not only just Westport, but about the entire campaign and what Sterling Price is thinking, what the consequences are, what the benefits could be of this raid.
I mean, there's a lot to take in with all of that.
Yeah, a lot
More
of
than
good
you would
stuff.
think at first glance.
And again, I've got to kudos to I think they're called the Battle of Westport Foundation or something like that. But
I think you're right. Yeah.
These guys, I mean, I'm looking at one of their tour maps now. It's just they're doing something there. Mm-hmm. Good kudos to them for getting that out there, trying to explain. Sorry, I was leaning off looking at a map. Getting a battle that gets overlooked, out in Missouri, getting a lot of good feedback there. They have, I know they have a lot of signs out there, some cannons, things like that. They have the Warnell House. They have that. That's part of their stuff.
It's nice that that's still standing. Too.
Yeah, apparently there had been a tree in one of the parks. I forgot what the park's called. But anyway, there was a tree there, and supposedly that is where Sterling Price watched the battle from. Now, the tree has since fallen down, but you can still go to that park. And there's cannons and things. I think they said it's Loose Cannon Park or something. I don't know exactly. I can't remember what the name of it is.
A few places that's not developed.
Yeah, they just very, it seems like I've not been there, but I'm intrigued to go there, not only studying the battle, but seeing what they have and being like, wow, we could, you could really learn some good. So shout out to them for getting that,
making
that
an effort at least, you know. One thing that I meant to mention, as we were still talking about the battle itself, and something that I think is pretty interesting, not necessarily that it plays a pivotal role in the outcome of the battle, but just something that's more of a fun fact. As the Confederates were, making their last ditch effort and kind of, making that stand before they decided to get out of Dodge, there was a point where the Confederates had lost all but one of their pieces of artillery, and they were firing that one piece of artillery against 30 Union guns, as well as the bulk of the Union advance. So I mean, this is a very futile effort. This is last ditch. This is kind of just an honor type of thing. And this Arkansas cavalry decides to charge down towards the Federal artillery that's unlimbering, just to try to capture some artillery to have in their favor, because right now, like I said, they've only got one piece, and that really does you no good against the bulk of the Union Army. And Captain Curtis Johnson's 15th Kansas Cavalry sees that this Arkansas cavalry is charging the guns, trying to capture them, and he's like, oh no, this isn't going to fly. So he goes to intercept them, and in the midst of this, they kind of have their own clash. And Curtis Johnson of the 15th Kansas and Colonel James McGee of that aforementioned Arkansas Cavalry Regiment stop in the middle of all of this chaos to have a duel with their revolvers, which, I mean, is something that you would think is only like something from a movie. But they duel, and they both hit each other, but neither one dies. They're just severely wounded, and they're both pulled from the field. But I mean, it's just little things like that I like to mention in these episodes. That it's just like, it's interesting that yes, this actually happened, and it's like something that you would think you'd only see in a movie. But yeah, I mean, this is part of the Battle of Westport.
Yeah. I need to make a correction too. I said about Marmaduke and Fagan being captured. It's actually Marmaduke and Cable that are captured at Mine Creek. Fagan is there. It's Marmaduke and Fagan's line that the Federal cavalry charge and break, but it's Marmaduke and Cable that are Cabell that are actually captured. And the other thing is the final battle of this campaign. It's technically a Confederate victory at Newtonia. General Blunt's going to attack the Confederate rear guard, but he's beaten back by Shelby's counterattack.
When is that?
That is October 28th. So
just a few days later. Yeah, I mean, they gained some ground in that.
Oh yeah, they're moving.
Time. They are running.
But now here's the funny thing: you have that, and then by December 2nd. So the whole month of November, apparently nothing happens. Price's army,
Election month.
Yeah, it's continued to retreat into Arkansas and then Indian Territory, like we said, down to Texas. But the remnants of Price's army will finally reach Lanesport, Arkansas. These guys on their raid from August to December, 1,400 miles on their raid into Missouri, and really, the end is kind of a fruitless raid. Doesn't change the outcome of anything.
Well, speaking of election month too, that's something I failed to mention was that when bringing in the Kansas militia, that was what the governor of Kansas was afraid of, was that Curtis was trying to draw all these Kansas residents from their voting precincts to go and fight in a war, so that way he could kind of sway the results of the election in favor of the federal government. And that was one thing that made him so hesitant as to supply troops initially. And then obviously, just one other fun fact to throw in there: as Price retreated, he thought that his big escape would be to light the prairie on fire as a smokescreen, as if Pleasanton's cavalry couldn't just ride through that
or ride
around it, one or the other. But yeah, he's like, I'll just throw some smoke up, and that'll
lighten stuff up. And I find it interesting too. We have this, Kansas Missouri border battle, and not just that, but you look at it. Some of this stuff's happening right there at the Indian Territory now at Pea Ridge. We have troops, Native American troops fighting in that battle. There's none in this, that we know of. Like I said, I haven't researched Moonlight. I just feel like that's seems like a Native American name, which is cool. And if it's not, it's still a cool name, like we said. But I just find it interesting at this point. The Native Americans have got to be going. The ones that were fighting on the Confederacy, most of them have got to be going. Yeah,
this isn't going to pan out for us.
We're just going to hang out over here.
Right.
If you come over here okay, we might shoot you, but at this point, you guys do your thing.
And speaking of Native Americans, a notable name, at least in that battle, Frederick Benteen, who was president at Westport, would fight with George Custer at Little Bighorn.
Yes.
So there's a tie-in there, at least with the Native American side of things. Not so much in the federal favor,
Is
but
this Thomas Moonlight? Thomas Moonlight,
I believe that's his name.
governor of Wyoming.
Yes, Colonel Thomas Moonlight.
I say there's not many folks with that last name.
He was born in Forfarshire, Scotland.
Wow.
So
Okay, I was way off. So Moonlight is apparently a Scottish
Not
name.
even close.
That's a cool
Good
Scottish
guess.
name, though.
yeah, that's
That's an interesting one, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I wanted to get that settled before we ended.
Yes,
this
yes.
episode.
Because
I keep talking about it,
gonna
yeah.
look it up. Yeah. Right.
I was like, we were gonna end it, and then we were gonna have to be like
Gotta clarify.
Native American.
So we found something. Yeah. No, that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah. He seems like an interesting feller, so we'll have to look a little bit more into him. But any other things to add, fellas?
Aside from Wild Bill Hickok being involved in this campaign and battle, Buffalo Bill Cody
Mm-hmm.
in the 7th Kansas Cavalry. So all these Wild West heroes are making themselves known here at the Battle of Westport.
That's pretty cool. I think I might just say it. Westport sounds kind of cooler than Gettysburg, like as a battle.
I mean,
Like there's characters like that.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of a mystery of whom this Moonlight guy is. It's
there's a lot
whoa.
of- there's a lot of interesting things there.
No, I mean that's gonna tick some people off. I don't mean that, but
He's just
It's-
kidding.
I think it's
What you're
very,
saying, though.
it's very overlooked, and no, I think we need to put some respect on Westport. That's why
Yeah.
I really wanted to make this episode, and we appreciate West Bottoms Whiskey Company for kind of making the idea blossom in our mind based off of their brand and their
Yeah,
their
shout out
company.
to them because they suggested this when they were like, "Could you guys do this with Westport?" Sure.
It's like yes, we can.
Yes, we
That's
can.
when Aaron gets a call. What do you know about Westport?
And that's where Aaron comes in.
That's when we let Aaron.
Drink our whiskey. Yeah, drink our whiskey for us, please.
Come here.
Yeah, but
He's been scratching at the door for a week.
I know. We'll feed him some whiskey. So, well, awesome. Well, we really appreciate Aaron you coming back on and helping us dive in a little bit into Westport, sipping on this West Bottoms Kansas City whiskey, and we're super thankful. This is episode 22?
22.
22. We're almost to the 1 year mark, guys. If you stick with us, we'll get you there. We'll make it all worth it.
Something special, maybe.
We'll keep going. We just hit 2,000, above 2,000 followers on Instagram and Facebook. So thank you all so much for that support there. Don't forget, if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, don't forget to rate the podcast. You can give it stars. We prefer 5. If you're gonna pick less than 5, don't pick any. Just don't even
Just disregard.
disregard the survey. And then on YouTube, don't forget to give the YouTube video a thumbs up. That helps put it in people's feeds and exposes new people to the world of Civil War, which is the ultimate goal. So we thank you all so much for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Thanks, guys.